In the early hours of Easter Monday, April 21st, 2025, as dawn broke over the Vatican, Pope Francis drew his final breath. The 88-year-old pontiff, who had revolutionized the Catholic Church with his humility and compassion, passed away peacefully in his simple room at the Domus Sancti Marthae, the Vatican guest house he chose over the lavish papal apartments. His final words, written in his spiritual testament, captured the essence of his life's mission. May the Lord grant a fitting reward to all those who have loved me and who continue to pray for me. The suffering that has marked the final part of my life, I offer to the Lord, for peace in the world and for fraternity among peoples. To understand the profound impact of Pope Francis, we must journey back to the streets of Buenos Aires, Argentina, where his story began. Jorge Mario Bergoglio was born on December 17, 1936, in the Flores neighborhood of Buenos Aires. The eldest of 5 children, he was the son of Mario José Bergoglio, an Italian immigrant accountant from Piedmont, and Regina Maria Sivori, a housewife born in Buenos Aires to a family of northern Italian origin. His father's family had left Italy in 1929 to escape the fascist rule of Benito Mussolini. Young Jorge grew up in a modest home filled with faith and hard work. As a boy, he attended Wilfrid Barón de los Santos Ángeles, a school run by the Salesians of Don Bosco. Even then, those who knew him witnessed his intellectual curiosity and quiet determination. Life wasn't always easy for the future pope. At 21, he suffered a life-threatening bout of pneumonia that required the removal of part of his lung, a condition that would affect his health throughout his life, but never his spirit. The call to religious life came unexpectedly. One spring day, while on his way to celebrate with friends, young Jorge passed by a church and felt compelled to go to confession. That moment changed everything. The priest's counsel touched something deep within him, igniting a flame that would guide the rest of his life. In 1958, at the age of 21, he entered the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits, as a novice. This decision marked the beginning of a lifelong commitment to serving God and the poor. He studied humanities in Chile, philosophy in Buenos Aires, and would later spend time in Germany and Ireland furthering his education. Ordained a priest on December 13, 1969, Father Bergoglio quickly distinguished himself through his intellect, pastoral heart, and leadership abilities. His rise through the church in Argentina was steady. In 1973, he was appointed provincial superior of the Jesuits in Argentina, a position of significant responsibility for a man not yet 40. Those who knew Father Bergoglio during these years speak of his deep spirituality, his administrative skills, and most notably, his commitment to the poor. While others in positions of power might have sought comfort, he chose simplicity. He lived in modest quarters, rode public transportation, and spent countless hours in the villas miserias, the slums of Buenos Aires, ministering to those most in need. The years of Argentina's dirty war in the 1970s presented challenges that would follow Bergoglio throughout his life. During this dark period of military dictatorship, thousands of Argentinians disappeared. As provincial superior, Bergoglio worked behind the scenes to protect those at risk, even providing his own identity papers to a man who resembled him to help him flee the country. In 1992, he was appointed Auxiliary Bishop of Buenos Aires, and by 1998 he became the Archbishop. As Archbishop, Bergoglio maintained his commitment to simplicity and service. He chose to live in a small apartment rather than the elegant bishop's residence, cooked his own meals, and continued to use public transportation. His episcopal motto, Miserando atque eligendo, by having mercy and by choosing, would prove prophetic of his future papacy. These words, taken from the writings of the Venerable Bede, referred to how Jesus saw Matthew through the eyes of mercy and chose him. On February the 21st, 2001, Pope John Paul II elevated Archbishop Bergoglio to the College of Cardinals. His reputation for humility, doctrinal conservatism, and commitment to social justice made him respected among his peers. Yet few could have predicted what would happen 12 years later. March 13, 2013, white smoke billowed from the Sistine Chapel chimney. Habemus Papam, we have a pope. The crowd in St. Peter's Square held its breath as Cardinal Jean-Louis Tauran announced the name of the new pontiff. Jorge Mario Cardinal Bergoglio, who took the name Francis. The world was stunned. For the first time in history, a Jesuit had been elected pope. For the first time, a pope had chosen the name Francis, honoring Saint Francis of Assisi, the patron saint of the poor. For the first time, the Catholic Church had a pope from the Americas, from the Southern Hemisphere. From his first moments as pope, Francis signaled a new direction. Rather than accepting congratulations from the cardinals while seated on the papal throne, he received them standing. Instead of wearing the traditional red, ermine-trimmed mozzetta, he appeared on the balcony in a simple white cassock. And before blessing the crowd, he asked them first to pray for him. "Brothers and sisters, good evening," he began simply. The crowd fell silent, touched by his humility. "You know that the duty of the conclave was to give a bishop to Rome. It seems that my brother cardinals went almost to the end of the world to get him. But here we are." Pope Francis's papacy would be defined by his commitment to mercy, his advocacy for the poor and marginalized, and his call for a church that goes out to the peripheries. He chose not to live in the apostolic palace, but instead remained in the Vatican guest house, Domus Sanctae Marthae. He wore simple vestments, carried his own briefcase, and paid his own hotel bill the day after his election. His first apostolic exhortation, Evangelii Gaudium, the joy of the gospel, laid out his vision. "I prefer a church which is bruised, hurting, and dirty because it has been out on the streets, rather than a church which is unhealthy from being confined and from clinging to its own security." Throughout his papacy, Francis tackled difficult issues with courage and compassion. His 2015 encyclical Laudato Si, Praise Be to You, addressed the urgent challenge of climate change, calling for an ecological conversion and describing the earth as our common home. He washed the feet of prisoners, embraced the disfigured, welcomed refugees, and reached out to those on society's margins. Interfaith dialogue was a hallmark of his pontificate. He built bridges with Muslims, signing the document on human fraternity with the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar. He strengthened ties with the Orthodox Church and Jewish leaders. He even took unprecedented steps to improve relations with China. Francis's papacy was not without controversy. His efforts to make the Church more inclusive of divorced and remarried Catholics, his openness to blessing same-sex couples, and his reforms of Vatican finances met resistance from traditionalists. Yet through it all, he maintained his gentle manner and commitment to dialogue. "Who am I to judge?" he famously said when asked about gay priests who were seeking God. These 5 words perhaps best encapsulate the spirit of mercy and compassion that defined his leadership. In February 2025, Pope Francis's health began to decline. Hospitalized with bronchitis, he developed a polymicrobial infection and bilateral pneumonia. His condition became critical, requiring blood transfusions and high-flow oxygen. Though he recovered enough to be discharged in late March, his strength was diminished. Yet his spirit remained indomitable. Against doctors' advice, he insisted on celebrating Holy Week and Easter liturgies. On Easter Sunday, April 20th, he appeared at his balcony for his final public blessing, calling once more for peace in war-torn regions and urging solidarity with the poor. The next morning, Easter Monday, Pope Francis woke early, as was his custom. Shortly after, he suffered a stroke, followed by what Vatican doctors called irreversible cardiocirculatory collapse. At 7:35 a.m., surrounded by his closest aides, the 266th successor of St. Peter returned to the house of the Father. As news of his death spread across the globe, bells tolled in churches from Buenos Aires to Beijing. World leaders paid tribute to a man who had touched hearts far beyond the Catholic Church. Even those who disagreed with him acknowledged his sincerity, his compassion, and his unwavering commitment to the least of these. Pope Francis's body was laid to rest, not in the crypts of St. Peter's Basilica, where most popes are buried, but at the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore in Rome, near the icon of Salus Populi Romani, the protectress of the Roman people, to whom he had a special devotion. Even in death he broke with tradition, choosing simplicity over pomp. The legacy of Pope Francis transcends religious boundaries. He reminded a cynical world of the power of humility, the strength found in vulnerability, and the revolutionary nature of mercy. In a time of division, he called for encounter and dialogue. In an age of indifference, he urged compassion for the suffering. In a culture of excess, he championed simplicity. Perhaps his enduring message is best captured in the words he used during his first blessing as Pope. Let us begin this journey together, a journey of brotherhood, of love, of trust among us. It was a journey he walked faithfully until his final breath. As we remember Pope Francis, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, the son of immigrants, the priest of the slums, the Pope of the peripheries, we are reminded of his frequent request, "Pray for me." Now we pray for him, with gratitude for his life and legacy, and with hope that we might live by the values he championed: mercy, humility, and love for all God's children.